Hey everyone, it's Matt here with Nightrun Studio, and in the last couple of videos we've been working on the visuals, getting in animations, adding a scrolling camera, and also creating a parallax effect so that we can simulate distance. That said, it's time to actually get this game happening. We're going to add a new state here. At the moment, I'm especially annoyed with our jump, which because we move so slow is really weak. We're going to add a running state which will improve our jump and just make it so much easier to explore our world. Alright, let's get started. So the first thing we're going to want to do is update our input system. You can open up our input system actions or go to edit, project settings, and then head to the input system package. Here's where we've got all of our actions, and you may already have a default setup for sprint. If you're in Unity 6, it generally does that for you, or you can add a new action now yourself with the plus button. I'm just going to rename this one to be run. It is going to be an action of type button, and you'll notice down below here that I've currently got it mapped to left shift. I actually don't like that, so I'm just going to click on here and type in J, as I like to use the J button for running. Now we do need to set up an interaction here, so let's go ahead and hit the plus button, and we want this to fire whenever we press run, but we also want to keep track of when we release it, so we're going to do press and release. With that update, we can close this and go ahead and open up our script. Let's begin by adding a couple of new variables. First of all, we need to know how fast we want to run, so we'll make a public float for our run speed. And then just to stay consistent, I'm actually going to change our speed value. If you hit Command R, Control R on PC in most IDEs, you can actually just retype it here and it will change the name everywhere it occurs within your scripts. If yours does not do that, sorry, you'll have to do it manually. We'll also just set a default run speed of 8 here for now, though we can change that in the inspector later. The one other thing we need to do is create a new bool here for our inputs. Since running is closely related to moving, I'm just going to put it up there, and we'll make a bool called run pressed. Now we'll need to actually toggle that bool, so let's head on to the bottom here under on move and make a void method for on run. It's going to take in an input value, which we'll call value, and here our run pressed bool is just going to be equal to whether or not the value of the input is equal to is pressed. So if it's pressed, it'll be true. If it's not pressed, it'll be false. Now we don't need to create a whole new state for running, as it's just a modification of our movement, so we can head to our handle movement method. Here we're just going to need to make a few tweaks. First, let's create a new float for current speed, and this is just going to store which speed value we're using, whether it's running or walking. So we'll just ask a question, is run pressed? If so, we're going to use run speed, and if not, we'll use walk speed. Now that we've got that value, we can just make our target speed equal to our move input multiplied by current speed, so either running or walking. And actually that's all we need to do for now to be able to test. So let's head back into Unity. Just make sure that you set a walk speed. Since I renamed it, it reset the value to 0, and then we can test this thing out. All right, when you get in the game, it should be working. You should have your ability to walk, and then if you hold down your button, I'm using J, you should be able to move faster. That said, it does look a little funny that I'm moving so quickly with the exact same animation. So let's set up a run animation. For ease of setting this up, I'm going to drag my animation pane up top here. Make sure you're clicked on the sprite to do this, and then we're going to click here on our current animation and just create a new one. I'm going to call this run and save it into my animations folder. If you're following along using Brullov's generic character, we can just go in there. It's on the first sheet here, and it's actually going to be animations from number 14 through to 21. So let's just shift click to drag all of those at once. And just to double check, 22, yeah, that's definitely not running. All right, since this is a looping animation, we do want to grab our first frame and just repeat it at the end. We can then zoom in, hit play, and see that it's working. It's just really fast. So let's select everything and we'll drag this out. I'm going to set mine up over about 40 frames here. And when I hit play, that's looking much nicer. All right, step 1 down. Now we need to add this into our animator. So again, we'll click on our sprite. Let's go up to our animator, and we've now got a run animation in here. I'm just going to jump down, as I like to have run and move close together. Let's create a new parameter here. This will be a bool, which we'll call is running. And I'm just going to drag it up to the top so that it shows up as our first option when we're setting up our transitions. At this point, let's create those transitions, both going to run and then also exiting it. And then click on that first one. Here we can add a condition. We're going to have it go to this one is running as true, and we'll leave if is running as false. Don't forget to turn off your exit time and duration so that as soon as you stop pressing the button, the animation changes. All right, step 2 done. Now we're ready to head into our script and code this. Now we've just got a few lines of code here to do, but we're starting to get to the point that we're straining against having so much stuff going on in one script. We're gonna stay with this setup for just a little while, but just a heads up that before long we're gonna refactor in order to make this more readable and modular. That said, let's set up our animations now. You can see at the bottom here we have our current bools for idle and walking. That's where we're gonna wanna set up our bool for running as well. At the moment, we're checking our move input multiple times here, and we're gonna be doing it again, so let's just simplify our logic a little. I'm just gonna create a local variable. This will be a bool called isMoving. And all it's gonna do is check the absolute value of our move input. So essentially, if we're pushing left and it's below 0, or we're pushing right and it's above 0, either way it will trigger this. And we're also gonna check if we're grounded. So if we're on the ground and pushing either left or right, moving will be true. Otherwise, it'll be set to false. This allows us to simplify our logic down below here so that we are only idle if isMoving is not true, and we're on the ground. Walking, similarly, will only be set true if isMoving is true and if we're not currently pressing the run key. We can copy that last line, then paste it down and set our isRunning to be if isMoving is true and run is pressed. We can get rid of that exclamation mark. All right, no setup necessary. Now when we get in the game, we should be able to play walking when we're walking, and then when we hold down our run key, there we go, we're running. All right, that's looking pretty good. We're gonna continue work on our player controller, adding some more states in the next couple of videos, and heads up, a refactor is coming before too long, along with some attack and combat. Hope to see you in those videos. Until then, this is Matt with Night Run Studio. Cheers.